Hey, welcome to the Summit Host Hangout podcast where you'll learn how to plan, strategize, and launch your profitable online summit. No influencer status necessary. I'm your host, Krista from Summit in a Box, and I have a few fun guest episodes all based around summit engagement lined up for you. And today, in episode 117, we're going to chat with a guest about what she considers the best kept secret for engagement on the internet right now, not even just for your summit. If you've been around long, you know that I'm constantly talking about the importance of engagement for your summit. It's what's going to set your summit apart from the rest, make your speakers want to come back again and again, get your attendees result, increase your conversion rates. Basically, everything that's important about a summit ties back to engagement. So before we dive into what this engagement secret is, I'll give you a little background information on our guest. She's been blogging since she was 12 years old and running a business for over 15 years. She and her husband, Paul, run Civilized Animal Productions, where she provides lifestyle tools that empower parents to change the world starting at home. She's also hosted some pretty incredible virtual summits that I have loved watching happen. So without further ado, let's dive in and talk with Jordan Aspen. Welcome, Jordan. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. Finally, I feel like this has been long overdue.
It's been a long time coming. It's great to be here for sure.
Tell us a little bit about you and your business before we dive in.
All right. So like you mentioned in the intro, my husband, Paul, and I are writers, storytellers at heart. We met and became friends over Milton's Paradise Lost, his epic poem, Paradise Lost. And after we got married, we decided to merge our businesses under Paul's brand, which is Civilized Animal Productions, where we teach communication skills like you said in the intro. People always ask about the name, so I'll give a quick explanation of Civilized Animal Productions. It comes from Plato's Laws essays, where he discusses how we as humans have both civilized desires and natures, as well as animal needs. And they're meant to work together. We don't need to pick one and not have one dominate the other. So our goal is to help people to work with both of those, work with both hands. An example is like our public school classrooms. We sit in rows, we check off boxes. This is over-civilized education. On the other hand, though, you as a parent know that we can't just let our kids tear around the house like animals. That's over animal. We need this balance of the two. And I actually was thinking about it, and I remember you sharing on your Instagram stories how you let your daughter put the Post-it notes with the names of new members of Summit in a Box on the wall for you and celebrate those new members. And I think that's a great example of working with both hands with a 2-year-old because it gets that physical, visceral sticking of the Post-it notes wherever she wants on the wall, on the closet door. And while at the same time, there's an order to it. We're not just pulling off tons of sticky notes and sticking them all over the house. I'm sure she would love to do
She would love that.
But there's a direction to it. Okay, we're celebrating this person's and we're putting their name on the wall. And so, yeah, that's just a really great example of bringing those two together in a preschool setting. And we like to do that at every age and every stage.
Oh my gosh. I love that. I didn't know that.
That's what we're about.
Oh my goodness. I love it. I love everything you guys do. I also want to hear about the summits you guys have run up to this point. Tell everybody a little about like who those were for, what they were about, anything else you think they should know.
Yes. So 2020 was really experimental for us, maybe for all of us, but for us at Civilized Animal Productions especially. We ran that first summit in July, right after getting into Summit in a Box, as a passion project. We didn't serve parents specifically at that time, but we put together a summit for parents who didn't know what they were doing for their schooling in the fall because 2020. And it was weird and crazy. And I was homeschooled. So I had a bunch of contacts who were like, hey, everybody, come to the dark side, come homeschool. And that's not right for everybody. And so these public schoolers, private schoolers, these parents were looking for an alternative that wasn't homeschool, but some direction. Like, what if school does start and then they end up being sent home for a month? Like, we had no idea what was going on. So we pulled together a bunch of people, both homeschoolers and non-homeschoolers, and just talked about ways to work together with both hands with your kids, whether they're schooling online in that super over-civilized format of having to stay in front of the screen. Even the best teachers can't it only can do so much in that sort of setting. And so, yeah, we pulled in a whole bunch of different things about, we even had one person talking about gap years for elementary and middle school students. We do this for college age,
Yeah.
but we talked a little bit about the concept, what if this 20 to 21 school year is a gap year? Your kids will be okay. Anywho, so as you can imagine, this resonated with a lot of people and was wonderfully successful and helped a lot of people out. And so we were super excited to run a second summit before the end of the year. But of course, it was 2020, so it was all about the curveballs, both good and bad, right?
Mhm.
So we did even more experimentation with that second summit that served more of the audience that we'd been used to serving, which is entrepreneurs. And we specifically focused on parent entrepreneurs to kind of pull these two audiences together. We learned a lot about what not to do with this summit. In looking at certain numbers, you would say it was a failure, but it wasn't ultimately a failure because we had amazing engagement with the people who were there. There's so much that Paul and I are still dissecting there and going through what went on. But the biggest experiment that we tried was using this new tool that we're going to talk about today, which, like I said, even with low attendance, we had great engagement. It helped keep everything else from falling apart.
Yes. Oh my, and I mean, there's always going to be those experiences. I think we've all gone through things like that, whether it's through a summit or not. But I am thinking of a specific summit I ran where, like, I think like that's my equivalent to maybe what that one was for you, where you're looking back, you're like, okay, could have done something different there, but also there were still these parts that were really, really cool. So this engagement secret that we're going to talk about, like you just said, is something you used in your second summit, but not in your first. So tell me a little bit about the difference you saw in those two summits that you think you can attribute that secret tool to.
Well, I think the biggest thing is for our first summit, I used a Facebook group to stay connected with our speakers and a second Facebook group for our attendees, just like you talk about Summit in a Box. In fact, exactly like you talk about in Summit in a Box. Used your swipe copy, everything. And it wasn't bad. Facebook groups definitely work great for a lot of hosts, summit hosts, and certain audiences, but it just doesn't work well with our people. And we discovered that as a part of the first summit. In fact, our number one complaint from our attendees was that our primary engagement was happening on Facebook between the people who didn't have an account at all and the people who didn't want to use their account for more and more reasons. And I'm seeing this even more in our audience as 2021 goes on, with people just not comfortable with Facebook, not loving to go onto Facebook and be distracted by everything else.
Mm-hmm.
There's all kinds of reasons. So we knew that we wanted to experiment with other engagement options for our second summit, specifically because of those complaints and that feedback. So for our second summit, I wanted that alternative, and I found Video Ask, which is this secret engagement tool we're going to talk about a lot. I had all these ideas for how I could use Video Ask to engage with our attendees after exploring some different use cases. I've never seen it used with a summit before, and so I was pulling from other types of use cases and tweaking it for summit use. And kind of as a result, we caught the eye of Video Ask and some of the questions that I was asking of their experts. I told them that we were using it for a summit, doing all of these experiments, and they ended up becoming more involved and interested in its use for summits as well. So you may even see summit use cases start showing up on the website. But as of the time I was running it, that didn't exist. So all these ideas with how to connect with our attendees using Video Ask. But at the last minute, kind of on a whim, I decided to send a Video Ask to our speakers as well, instead of one of my usual email updates. And the response kind of blew me away. People were really excited to see my face and hear my excitement with just this quick, less than 2-minute video. And they ended up flipping on their cameras and sending me the response right away, right then. And you could tell they had just listened because their face was all lit up and like, oh, wow, this is a cool tool. Am I on? That sort of raw video, but just this quick response of, yeah, I got it. I'm in, excited to promote. I don't remember exactly which update I sent out using Video Ask. I did a couple and they loved it. So I'm going to definitely be using it more for speaker engagement in the future.
Yeah, no, I love that. So you saw not only a difference in your attendee engagement and how happy they were, but it even carried over to your speakers, which I didn't know about. That's really cool. I could see how they can love that. So you noticed your attendees for the second summit kind of getting, the ones who were showing up, getting more excited and engaged than they did in the first one?
Yeah. So I think to backtrack for a second here, like what is Video Ask and why was it a good replacement? Because Video Ask did not completely replace a Facebook group and doesn't replace live interaction, because the key with Video Ask is it is asynchronous, I think is how you say it, communication, which is what makes it scalable. So to explain that, it's kind of like in a Facebook group, when you have the threads going on and the discussion going on, that's asynchronous communication. Someone can log on whenever they want, ask a question. Then an hour later, when you log on as Summit host, you can answer that question. And meanwhile, other people have logged on and said, oh yeah, following, or, have engaged in other ways. So it allows for people to engage on their own time, in their own time frame. Whereas in a Facebook group, when you go live in the Facebook group, that's not something that you can do through Video Ask. So we used a different tool for that half of engagement to replace Facebook groups in that sense. But the asynchronous communication works really, really well for our audience because we have an audience of parents and it's an international audience. So we had one of our most engaged people was an hour different from us. And one of our other most engaged people was on the other side of the world. And so we were able to engage with both of them using Video Ask because we could send out our message whenever we wanted. And then they could check it and send a response whenever they wanted. And so it was more like those Facebook comments than an actual live interaction. And that worked really, really well for our audience. So Video Ask is kind of like, say, the Marco Polo app, where you can create a video to send to somebody. But one of the keys is that you're limited to 2 minutes, which is amazing and is an amazing time saver because you can't just ramble on. You have to just send your response right away, short comment, there you go. You can even limit your responses from other people when you invite them to respond back even further.
Oh, yeah.
You can set it to like a 30-second response or something like that. You can also allow them to not have to turn on their video. They can send a text message back. They can send an audio only message back. So you're covered that way. You can use GIFs. So Video Ask is all about, like, their core vision, I guess, is the best interface is your face. And I totally agree. And like I said, with the speakers, when they saw my face, they saw my engagement, my excitement, they engaged with excitement as well. And so Video Ask is really, you can use it for that really, really well, but you also don't have to use video all the time. So don't be too scared off if you're like, well, I don't want to be sending video messages all the time. The other thing is that it's not about sending video messages all the time either, because it's built around this making the unscalable scalable, meaning that you send one message to everybody and they can respond, or even click through. You can string these messages together. You can even use conditional logic. You can get super fancy with it. To use conditional logic to, based on what they click, what answer, how they respond, they can be then sent to another video. So you don't have to rely on getting this response and then having to answer this frequently asked question. In fact, one of our use cases that worked really, really well was on our registration page. Our FAQ was a video ask. And so we said, I pop on the screen down at the bottom of our registration page and say, do you have more questions? If it's one of these below, click it and I'll answer it immediately. If you have another question, click that bottom button and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And then they can click the FAQs and I verbally answer that question in front of them instead of them just clicking expand and reading it for themselves. So it's super engaging. People get really used to seeing you and your face and associating you with the summit, so that then when you do those live events using whatever other tool you choose, Facebook or otherwise, it increases that know, like, and trust factor. They recognize you, even if they're brand new to you via an affiliate or a speaker promotion or something like that.
Yeah. And I mean, that's huge for after the summit too. When you're launching whatever your thing is that you're launching, you just built so much more trust so much more quickly. Like nothing can beat video, seeing someone on video, other than seeing them in person, of course. But yeah, that's so powerful. And even just the two ways you said you've used it already, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. So you said the speakers and the FAQ. What are some other ways you used it?
We had a chat widget on every page. So you know how you're used to seeing on most websites now, there's that little bot in the bottom corner and is like, hey, how are you? And you're like, I know you're a bot. Well, for us, we have this little circle on the corner of our website page, and you can see Paul's face, and it's actually moving. It's like a GIF of the video. And so you can see he's like moving, and then it has an overlay that says questions or comments. And you can change that text. That's just what we happen to have. And then if you click that, it just says, hey, we're so glad that you're here, something or other. He scripted that video. I don't remember exactly what it says, but you can engage that way. And like I said, you can use that conditional logic. You can set up something where it is like a bot, but you're the bot. You're the one actually, it's not just text messages from a bot. It's you saying those things. Mm-hmm. So you can treat it exactly like that. Or like us, we threw it up there because it was a use case that I was like, oh, this is cool. We should do this. I'm in the middle of planning a summit. Paul, throw this up there. So he just said, hey, you have a question or a comment? Let us know. We'll get back to you. And then had an open-ended response. And people did. It was great. People used it to report spelling errors on pages. People used it to ask questions about, we didn't have a live chat going because, like I said, our summit was all about being asynchronous for a huge chunk of it. So that chat widget became where people would ask questions for the speakers that we then brought to speaker Q&A panels, and then people could review that question. So they didn't have to show up live to the Q&A panel to submit that question. And I had somebody just submit essentially a video testimonial. Just said, hi, it's been great. And here's what I've been doing. We solicited that a little bit as well in a kind of check-in partway through the summit. Hey, how's it going for you? Today's an implementation day. What are you working on? So this brings me to kind of another layer of this. It is awesome for collecting testimonials. And so once again, replacement for that Facebook group, you know how it's really easy to screenshot a Facebook comment and get permission to use it as a testimonial. And then you can use it on your next summit registration page or on the VIP ticket page or All Access Pass upgrade page, whatever, or even in an email, you can throw it in there, you know, a follow-up email. Here's what people were saying. Oh, and for our sponsors, being able to include that in a report, things like that. So we almost accidentally got video testimonials just by using Video Ask because people were excited to share things. And then I just get permission. Can I clip this and share it? Now I've got video testimonials. How cool is that? How believable is that? It's clearly not just you typing up a testimonial, you know, oh yeah, Sarah totally said this. You're actually seeing somebody's face saying, Jordan and Paul's summit was amazing. So that feels pretty good and is a great tool for future summits as well. I use Video Ask for our welcome video and like the video pop-up that comes up when people register for free. And then it kind of comes to that upsell page. I make our little upsell video, uses Video Ask. And we even made a couple of quizzes using their conditional logic feature. We did the quiz that lets people know like what their top presentations are. We used Video Ask to accomplish that. And so once again, it's getting our faces in front of people and it's super interactive. And then we were able to direct and redirect, tag people with they're interested in this topic. This is the not to miss presentation, all of those things that go along with a quiz. We just made it using Video Ask instead. So yeah, there's so much we could get into, but ultimately, I think the takeaway that I want from hearing this list of things is that Video Ask is not so much a tool that you need to add to your arsenal. It's a tool that will enable you to do the things you're already doing better.
Yeah, and that's what one of my next questions was going to be, was like, how much extra work did it require of you? But when I'm hearing you say all these things, most of those things are things you would have done in a different way anyways. This is just a better way, right?
Exactly. For the most part, although there was one thing that we did, and in retrospect, like hindsight is 2020, right? Why did we do this? I know why we did it, but it was such a bad idea. We turned the scalable version of using Video Ask unscalable again. And we tried sending individualized welcome emails using Video Ask to people that registered. And there was all of this behind the scenes that we were using to experiment and interacting with people. So I don't exactly regret it, but I definitely don't recommend it. And we got someone on our team to do that. We brought someone on to do that part of it. And yeah, like I said, don't recommend, don't exactly regret, but bringing on that person to learn Video Ask and basically onboarding them and having them learn the tool really answers this question of how much time does it take and how much tech do you need to know in order to use this tool. It took us maybe an hour on our end and not even that much time on his end to onboard him and get him using the tool to interact one-on-one with these people and be able to handle some of the responses. And most of that time was us building a specific process for our use case, which was an experimental use case that I don't recommend you copy. So only a fraction of that hour was learning a new tool. It's super intuitive. Like I said, the speakers were hopping on and learning to use the tool as soon as I sent them a message and using it to respond. And we're doing it immediately. And on the back end, there's not that much more. You can get complicated, just like any tool. Yeah. You can get complicated with conditional logic. And if someone clicks this, they go here. And if someone clicks that, they go there, and sending them down these different paths. Just like a summit quiz. A summit quiz can be super simple and direct them to one of two tracks. Or it can be super, super complicated. Yeah. Like me and Jen have talked about.
Yes, and we're having Jen on really soon to talk about getting nerdy with us on quizzes. So I'm sure she can break down just how complicated they can get. But yeah, oh my gosh, I love this. There's so many options. And I just love like all of the different examples you've broken out for us so we can see all of these different ways it can be applied. And I guess with all of that, is there like a single biggest takeaway you would want people to pull out of what we've talked about today with how you can use it or what it can do to kind of elevate the experience you're creating, anything like that?
Yes. I have known about Video Ask for years. Somebody originally told me about it for collecting testimonials some time ago, but I had no clue how incredible it was until I tried it. You might have listened to this whole podcast and go, okay, cool, video. Like I can do that over Instagram, or I can do that over Facebook message, or I can do that within my Facebook group. Yes, but you can do it way better through Video Ask, and you've kind of got to see it to believe it. So I try the free version. The free version has most of the features that you need to get started. If you use it for a summit, you're probably going to need to upgrade for a month just because of volume. Hopefully, you'll have a ton of engagement and need a little bit more on the volume side, but it's super affordable too, especially if you just need it for a month for a summit. But yeah, go in to the free version, maybe set up a chat widget on your site for use, whether you are doing a summit or not right now, or look at the use case for how to set up an FAQ or collect testimonials. The use cases on Video Ask site are amazing. They're beautifully done. They're really easy to take in. They're not like these super detailed case studies that you need to read through. They have like a literal video ask as an example from one of their customers on that use case page. So you can see exactly how somebody is using it. Try something. Just explore it a little bit. And I think you'll fall in love with it like I did.
I've loved seeing you like experiment with it and every step of the way being like, oh, this is really cool. No, wait, this is really cool. Like just getting more and more passionate about it as you used it more. It's been so fun to watch. And just thank you for being willing to come in and share with us today and giving us an idea of all these different directions we can take, all these simple directions we can take to add more and more to your summits. So we are going to link to video ask in the show notes. Be sure to go click there just in case we can throw in a little something special for you. Jordan, along with that, tell us a little bit about where people can go to learn more about you and what you offer as well.
Well, you can go to civanpro.com, civanpro.com, and you can drop us a line using the video ask widget in the bottom corner of every page of our website.
I love it. I love it. Just test it out. Go send them a message. Thank you so much for being here, Jordan.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. For show notes and resources mentioned, head to summitHostHangout.com/117. In the next episode, we'll be chatting about bringing a physical aspect to your virtual summit as a way to increase engagement and conversion, so be sure to tune in for that. Now go out and take action to plan, strategize, and launch your profitable online summit.